Right now, somewhere between your last meal and this exact moment, trillions of tiny organisms living inside your gut are producing chemicals that reach directly into your brain. That is not a metaphor. It is basic biology, and for most of medical history, doctors flat out ignored it. For decades, the idea that what you eat could shape how anxious or depressed you feel was treated as fringe, something closer to folk wisdom than real science. Meanwhile, mental health problems kept climbing. Depression alone affects roughly 280 million people worldwide today, and anxiety disorders affect an estimated 301 million more. That is not a niche issue. That is more people than the entire population of the United States living with a diagnosable anxiety disorder right now. So here is a question worth sitting with for a second. What if part of the answer was never in a pill bottle at all, but sitting on your plate this whole time? To understand why scientists even started asking that question, you have to go back to something researchers now call the gut-brain axis. Your gut is lined with its own nervous system, sometimes nicknamed the second brain, containing more neurons than your entire spinal cord. It talks to your actual brain constantly, through the vagus nerve, through hormones, and through chemical signals produced by the bacteria living inside your intestines. And there are a lot of those bacteria. A healthy adult gut hosts somewhere around 38 trillion microbial cells, roughly as many cells as the rest of your entire body combined. These microbes are not just passengers. They break down food your own cells cannot digest, and in the process, they manufacture compounds that influence inflammation, hormone signaling, and even neurotransmitter production. Which brings us to fiber. Not the boring, bland cereal, keep you regular kind of fiber you learned about in health class. Something closer to fuel for an internal ecosystem that might be quietly running your mood. Fiber is the part of plants your own digestive enzymes cannot break down. Cellulose, pectin, resistant starch, dozens of different molecules all lumped under one word. Because your body cannot digest it directly, fiber travels all the way down to your colon still mostly intact. And that is exactly where the interesting part starts. Bacteria in your colon ferment that fiber, and the byproduct is a group of molecules called short-chain fatty acids, which get absorbed into your bloodstream and can influence inflammation throughout your entire body. Some of that fermentation also feeds specific bacterial species, like Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus, strains that past research has linked to lower anxiety and improved mood in both animal and human studies. Here is where it gets even stranger. Those same gut bacteria can produce neurotransmitters directly, including GABA and serotonin, the exact same chemical messengers that most antidepressant and anti-anxiety medications are designed to target. Somewhere between 90 and 95% of your body's serotonin, the so-called happiness chemical, is actually produced in your gut, not your brain. So the theory is not some wellness influencer's invention. It rests on real, measurable biology. But biology existing in theory and biology actually changing how anxious you feel are two very different claims. And this is where the story gets messy, because for years, small studies pointed in different directions, some finding fiber helped, others finding nothing at all. Back in 1998, a scientist named Michael Gershon published a book that first popularized the term second brain, arguing the gut's own nervous system deserved serious study, not dismissal as a simple digestive relay. Mainstream psychiatry mostly ignored that idea for another 2 decades, treating depression and anxiety almost entirely as chemical imbalances confined to the skull. That only really started shifting in the 2010s, when larger studies began finding that people diagnosed with depression have measurably different gut bacteria than people without it, not just in theory, in actual lab samples. A very different industry, noticed that same research and ran with it fast. The global market for prebiotic and probiotic supplements is now worth tens of billions of dollars a year, much of it marketed directly at anxiety and mood. Which is exactly why separating the real evidence from the marketing matters. If millions of people are already buying fiber and probiotic supplements hoping to feel less anxious, it is worth knowing whether the science actually backs that up. Fiber's other, well-established health benefits do not settle the mood question either. Doctors have recommended it for decades to lower cholesterol, stabilize blood sugar, and support digestion, benefits that have nothing to do with anxiety specifically. So the mental health claim was riding on the coattails of Fibre's already strong reputation, which makes it easy to assume it was equally well proven, even when, going into this research, it simply was not. Have you ever noticed feeling foggier, more irritable, or just off after a few days of eating almost nothing but processed food? That feeling might be more than just a coincidence, but pinning down exactly why, and by how much, requires the kind of evidence a handful of small studies simply cannot provide. To make things more complicated, modern diets have drifted a long way from what human digestive systems evolved to handle. Hunter-gatherer populations that still exist today, studied directly by researchers, typically eat somewhere around 100 grams of fiber a day. The average adult in a modern industrialized country eats somewhere between 15 and 18 grams. Less than a fifth of what our digestive systems were built around. That gap did not happen by accident. Refining grains, removing skins and seeds from fruit, and processing food for shelf life all strip out fiber along the way. Which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if a huge chunk of the population is running an internal ecosystem that is chronically underfed, exactly at the moment mental health problems are climbing? It is a compelling story. Almost too compelling, which is usually the moment a scientist should get suspicious rather than convinced. Individual studies on fiber and mood have been published for years, but most were small, inconsistent, or looked at only one narrow slice of the picture, like a single type of fiber supplement in healthy college students. Some studies used real dietary surveys, tracking what thousands of people actually eat over years. Others tested giving people an isolated fiber supplement in a pill or powder and measuring what happened over a few weeks. Those are fundamentally different experiments, and mixing their results together without care is exactly how bad nutrition headlines get made. So what happens when researchers finally force every single one of those conflicting studies into the same room at once? A team in Australia and Ireland set out to find out, pulling together every relevant study on fiber and mood they could find, all in one place at the same time. They ended up with 33 separate studies, covering more than 182,000 people combined. 23 of those were observational studies, tracking real diets in real populations. The other 10 were randomized controlled trials, the gold standard for testing cause and effect. Here is what the observational data showed. Across those 23 studies and 181,405 participants, people who reported eating more fiber also reported meaningfully fewer symptoms of both depression and anxiety. The anxiety link was the stronger one. People with higher fiber intake showed a noticeably lower rate of anxiety symptoms compared to those eating the least fiber. 3 long-term studies that tracked the same people for anywhere between 3 and 17 years found the same pattern held up for depression over time, not just as a one-time snapshot. That is an important detail, because it at least weakens one obvious counter-argument. This was not just people answering a survey the same day they happened to eat well. But then the researchers turned to the 10 randomized trials, all of which tested fiber supplements rather than real food, and the results told a strikingly different story. Across 740 participants total, Taking a fiber supplement produced no statistically significant improvement in either depression or anxiety symptoms compared to a placebo. None. Despite the strong signal in the population data, when researchers actually gave people fiber in pill or powder form and measured what happened, the effect essentially disappeared. There was one interesting exception. A specific prebiotic fiber called galacto-oligosaccharides, known for strongly boosting bifidobacterium levels, did show a real reduction in anxiety symptoms compared to placebo. Only 3 trials tested that particular fiber though, so the researchers were careful not to oversell it as a solved case. So why would eating fiber correlate with better mood in the real world, while swallowing a fiber pill in a clinical trial does basically nothing? The researchers point to a few likely explanations. Most of the clinical trials only lasted 2 to 8 weeks, far shorter than the 6 to 12 weeks typically needed to properly test an antidepressant medication. Almost all of the trial participants were healthy adults too, not people with a clinical diagnosis of depression or anxiety, which makes any real effect harder to detect in the first place. And a fiber supplement, however concentrated, is not the same intervention as a genuine shift toward eating more lentils, vegetables, whole grains, and fruit, which deliver dozens of different fiber types alongside vitamins and polyphenols a single pill cannot replicate. The researchers are also upfront about something crucial. Correlation is not proof. It is entirely possible that feeling depressed changes what people choose to eat, rather than fiber changing how people feel, and most of the observational studies cannot fully rule that direction out. What we are left with is a genuinely honest, if slightly unsatisfying picture. A real and repeated link between higher fiber diets and better mental health across the population, but no solid evidence yet that a fiber pill alone will fix anyone's anxiety. Which, if you think about it, might be the least surprising finding in all of nutrition science. Real food keeps beating the shortcut one more time.